My son was 5 months old when I started my divorce. My personal situation, as well as sort of my, inherent predilections for wanting to make a concrete difference in people's lives, started to kind of surface. And I started to think, okay, well, what can I do that is going to feel more concrete and more meaningful than, the work that I'm doing now?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Bar podcast. I'm your host, Denisa Tova. And today's guest, I'm still smiling. She has such an awesome energy. She brings both the legal strategy and this I cannot wait to hear about lived experience to her work. Deepti Shenoy, she's a senior counsel at Aronson, Maevsky and Sloan, and a former in-house counsel at JPMorgan Chase, and a founder of Split Second. That is a New York City group supporting single moms navigating separation and custody, tough stuff. She's a litigator, she's a mom connector for sure, and she's been on both sides of the courtroom table. So again, this is a great time to get to know Deepti outside of her title. Deepti, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Denise. I'm so happy to be here. I love your energy, and I'm so glad we're getting to have this conversation.
Oh, this is so much fun. Wow, and I feel like I've known you for a while. So
Agreed. Yeah.
I see, I see the title and then the law firm, who's one of the top law firms in a city. And but I'm just curious, just tell me your story. I mean, how do you get here? Doing what you're doing. Just tell me where it all began and how you became an attorney and landed with this firm.
Sure. So my path to what I'm doing now was far from straight. Never had the sense when I was in college that I even wanted to be a lawyer all the way up until the end. When I was applying for law school, all of a sudden the idea sort of started to formulate in my mind, but basically spent most of college thinking that I was going to be pursuing a PhD in history, and was going to be a professor. As I got towards the end of law school, I mean, I started thinking that I wanted a career that involved more hands-on work with people and seeing a more concrete impact that I was having in people's lives, being able to help people. So ultimately ended up taking the LSAT, applied to law school without really giving it too much thought. So I definitely didn't quite know what I was getting into when I went to law school. But ended up there. When I graduated, I started as in-house counsel, as you mentioned, at JPMorgan. So it was a very different field of law. I was doing corporate in-house work as part of a rotational program. So I did a few different rotations through various areas of the bank. While I was at JPMorgan, I was actually going through a divorce myself, with a young child. My son was 5 months old when I started my divorce. And in the course of that process, I think, the thought started to formulate in my mind that while, there are many things to like about in-house work, I think my personal situation, as well as sort of my, inherent predilections for wanting to make a concrete difference in people's lives, started to kind of surface. And I started to think, okay, well, what can I do that is going to feel more concrete and more meaningful than, the work that I'm doing now? So I was kind of getting hands-on exposure to the field as part of my own divorce. And so I started kind of putting feelers out and seeing if, this was a possible transition I could make. Ultimately, things kind of shook out really. I mean, I would not have anticipated, being able to start the career that I ended up ultimately having. But I mean, I made that transition. It worked really well. And I felt like the work was really rewarding in a way that, it was, I think, uniquely rewarding work because both in terms of, uh, I could sort of see the impact of my work, but also in terms of this being an area that was incredibly meaningful to me as a mom and as a person going through a divorce. So here I am 8 years later. And yeah.
That's that you truly have transformed your own experience. You're sort of pouring that onto the clients and talking about having real perspective. What do you think, as someone who had been through it and now as a, an advocating, being a legal advocate for your client, um, what is something that you understand now as a result of that that maybe others might miss?
I think it's very easy as a litigant going through this process. I mean, especially when you're in the court, to feel sort of like you're caught up in the process, necessarily because people involved in the profession, I mean, they have a lot of cases that come across their dock. I mean, the courts are overloaded, and people, of course, do everything that they can, but, you're caught up in a system that is overwhelmed. And I think you start to sort of feel like a cog that's sort of caught up in the machinery of the court system.
Mhm.
And I think, going through that experience first and then coming to family law from my personal exposure to that, I think sort of really helped sort of highlight in my mind the importance of A, good representation, and B, recognizing that, when you're sitting on the other side of the table, something that might not seem like the biggest issue in the world to someone who's not part of it might be really important to these people that, are fighting for custody of their children, or, have these emotions and this history that is tied up in, the litigation that they're in. And, these issues are meaningful to these people, and it's important to recognize that and to honor that, in your representation of them. So I think that has been really having the opportunity to bring my personal experience to my practice, I think has been really rewarding. I don't know if that was actually an answer to the question that you posed to me, but hopefully it was.
No, we're just talking. It's really not about answering question. It's sharing your experiences, and there really isn't one answer, a perfect answer, and that's what makes this just so enjoyable. I'm so curious. What was just take me back to your upbringing, like how and where did you grow up, and how did the idea of you wanting to go to law school, how did that even come about?
So I grew up, the first few years of my life I spent in India. I lived in India until I was 9 years old, and ended up moving to the US, to California, when my dad got a new job when I was that age. And so we ended up moving there. I went to high school, school there, graduated high school there, went to college in California, and have always been someone who's gravitated towards, things like, reading and writing and, and I guess those are sort of the elements of, even being a professor that I think originally sort of drew me to that profession. But I think there's also this core element of, like, I've had, a really supportive family. I think that, that has been so meaningful in my life. And I think, I, family is important. So, I mean, I think that has definitely informed a lot of my decisions that have brought me to this point. In terms of law school, like I said, I mean, so I really hadn't even thought about it. There were no lawyers in my family, with the exception of I have one cousin in Australia who went to law school
Wow.
after her kids, got to a certain age and were more independent. But for the most part, I believe the only lawyer I can think of in the family. So that was definitely new for the family. My parents were, wonderfully supportive, encouraged me to sort of, try it out and see how it goes. Um, but I think that family support, I think, was really important to me, even, in the initial stages. Law school is a lot. And, it
Yeah.
can, so, I mean, I think having the right support system, I think, is really helpful in terms of getting you through that, and pushing you forward to focus on, like, where do you really want to go from here.
Wow. What do you do outside of work? What do you enjoy doing? How do you like re-energize yourself?
So I love, really, I mean, all kinds of creative hobbies. I like, making things of various types. I mean, so I mean, I call myself a serial hobbyist, but I mean, it's really, I mean, like, I will periodically pick up a new hobby, go like all in on it,
Wow.
and and then that becomes my life for a period of time. So, I paint, I draw, I crochet and knit. When I was I had some time in my hands during the pandemic. I picked up sewing, so I started sort of making my own clothes. I've done a spot of woodworking with my mom in the past when I sort of,
Wow.
I read a blog that, had to do with like basic woodworking, and I decided I wanted to try that. My most recent is I've recently gotten really into the idea of hydroponic gardening. And I'm all in on that. So, I mean, I'm basically like, I mean, I have bought a hydroponic setup for home. I've bought one for the office. They haven't arrived yet, so I don't know how it's going to go. But I mean, that's sort of, I think that's going to be my preoccupation for a bit.
I'm not laughing at you. I am actually, I am, it's smiling. It's smiling because it's just this. I think, I think it's so important to continue and sort of cultivate that creativity, curiosity we're all sort of born with,
Yeah.
kind of sort of, and just kind of get back to it. And I can't stand when someone's like, well, I'm bored. And it's either I'm bored and let's just continue. If I'm, and, or to entertain myself, let's just scroll up and down the feed.
Yeah.
Um, this is incredible. So I'm so curious. So like your last hobby, how do you decide? How do you determine what to get into? How did you find this one? Like, how did you get into
I
this
mean,
one?
honestly, I wish there was a more scientific answer to that. I mean, I literally just will like see something on a blog or come across something on social media or, hear about someone doing something, and then it'll like form a spark in my head. And then, and then I start obsessing over it. So I'm reading everything I can about it and trying to, learn all I can about it. And then basically, can't stop myself, so I will end up spending like hundreds of dollars, ordering supplies, and then you got to use the supplies. So, so that's kind of how it ends up going. And then some of my hobbies just end up sticking. I mean, like I said, I picked up sewing when I in 2020 when everything was sort of shut down. I took an online sewing class because I figured, I've got time in my hands, may as well do something with it. And that has stuck. I mean, I definitely have continued sort of branching out and learning new techniques, and I've started making some of my own clothes and some of my son's clothes. So I mean, it's actually kind of I mean, I find it really satisfying and really rewarding because you can really produce something in a really short period of time. That I don't know, I mean, I it's yeah.
Even that actually, it brings it's just joy because so I was born and raised in former Czech Republic until I was about maybe 15 and 16
Oh,
almost, and came to the States.
yeah.
Prior to that, lived in China for a few years with my mom, but my grandmother was a professional seamstress, and she had like 17 siblings. She had to learn how to do that on her own. So like at her older age, I would remember people coming in to her tiny little apartment, and like she would sew clothes for, I mean, for models on a runway, to just someone needing, I don't know, something, something small, and took so
That's
much,
incredible.
yeah, so much joy. I remember sorting buttons, all sorts of buttons, and um, it just, I think it's incredible. I think it's a great craft. That's unfortunately, I don't think I passed it on to my kids. Probably should, but but yeah, to even, I mean, how many people do you know? Like, how many teenagers do you know who can sew a button?
Right,
How
I
many
know. I mean, these are
adults?
all sort of like lost skills. And I mean, I feel like, I mean, there's so much else that people have to sort of preoccupy themselves with now
Yeah,
that, they did like when I was a kid. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like for me, I mean, I really just enjoy being creative. And I think we've all kind of got a well of creativity in us. I mean, which doesn't necessarily take the form of, learning to sew. It might be something else. I mean, you might
right.
be a writer, you might do something else, but I think it is really satisfying to sort of tap into whatever it is that, gets your gears going in terms of that well of, you know, uh, creativity that's inside you. So I don't know. That's something that's always, I mean, I think it's really helpful in de-stressing. I love having a project to work on. So that's, that's a big part of my life.
Do your friends and colleagues at work, do they know about your hobbies and interests? Are they in
Some
on
of them
it?
do. Some of them do.
Yeah.
I don't talk about it a whole lot, but yes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to picture it, yeah.
I don't talk about it a whole lot except when I'm sitting on a podcast with you.
There we go, it's out now. Wow, this is great. So tell me about, so you're also did you actually start the split second? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that I think has really come home to me, both in terms of my personal experiences with divorce and in terms of, just professionally and the people you talk to in the course of your practice, is that I think it's just really important to have a sense of community, whether, and not just for divorce moms, but, for uh, lawyers. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot sometimes. I mean, I think it's good to have people around you who understand where you're coming from and who you can rely on when you need to, and I think that's probably true for every walk of life. But I think divorce litigation especially, I think, is just such a uh, when you're in it, it's so all consuming that I think I mean, you need that support system in a way that you might not have needed it as much in other walks of life. So I mean, I think that has really become clear to me in the course of both my being on both sides of the table. But in terms of split second specifically, I actually had a friend that was going through a divorce herself. I mean, her story is pretty different from mine, but just very she was going through a difficult time in her own right, and I think she really felt like in that moment she needed community and people who understood her. So she had asked me if I knew of any groups that brought divorcing and divorced moms together, so they could connect over their shared experiences. I didn't know of any. I mean, I know that there are, groups, but I think just not so much focused on in-person meeting and connecting in person. So we talked about it some, and we felt that there was a need for it. So I ended up putting out feelers actually on Facebook about whether there would be interest in that type of community, and the response was really overwhelming. I mean, and you see that other people going through this really do feel the same way, that it's important to have that community. So the response was really, really overwhelming. And I think it was kind of incredible to see how interested people were in coming together in that way. So I ended up, setting up this group. We've had, a number of outings that we've organized. We've done dinners. We did a paint and sip at one point in time. And they're not always. I mean, we're not just sitting around talking about divorce, but I think that when the topic gets to that, I mean, I think it's just helpful to have people you can talk to who have some sense. I mean, their story might not be your story, but they have some sense of what the challenges are going through this kind of process, and I think that's important. So
Community support. I mean, it takes a village, but
for
then when
sure.
everything, I feel like, and I've been through the process, it was respectful. Nonetheless, it
Yeah,
is a tough transition, but
for
it's
sure.
almost like, when you're caught in it, there's a lot of movement, many voices, and you just keep going. And then suddenly it stops.
Yeah,
And then you're left sitting there with your own thoughts and
yeah,
fears.
yeah,
So I can see how not just meeting virtually or just talking about it, actually, rubbing shoulders and elbows with someone who's been through it, and you feel their energy and you feel like you're not alone. And you're right. And then it's so easy, I think, to get into this victim mentality. That's the other side of it. And if you see others who are, marching forward, and you can build a new life for yourself,
yeah.
that's a great concept. Wow.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just curious. I mean, you have so many interests and hobbies, including writing. Do you write just for yourself?
I do. I do. I have, a vision in the back of my mind of, at some point I would love to publish a novel. I have not actually gotten remotely close to being able to do that yet. I have like several chapters that I've written of several different novels that then, get, you know, s- put to the side in favor of something else. So unfortunately, I mean, like I just haven't been able to focus enough to get it done yet. But I mean, I would love to do that one day. And I think, writing is a unique challenge. I think, especially like when it's fiction writing or, when you're less
Yeah.
tied. I mean, nonfiction is interesting and I think has, I actually really enjoy nonfiction writing too. But when it comes to fiction or writing a novel, there's like, it takes a lot out of you creatively. I mean, and I think you have to have the time to sort of focus and, really, you know, put something together there. And I mean, I have a lot of admiration for people who've actually been able to, get to the end and have a finished novel to, to publish. I haven't been able to do that, but I do really enjoy that process as well. I think it's really rewarding. And I think it's just, uh, I think when you write, I think there are certain things about you that I think are sort of hidden at the back of your mind that you might
Mm.
not even recognize about yourself. And I think, in the course of telling these stories, things sort of come to the surface that you didn't even really know existed, which I think is really interesting. But yeah, no, it's just one of those many creative hobbies that I enjoy. But yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like you transport your world into another world. And then in order to finish the novel, you always have to stay in there. It's like you
Yes.
continue to come back, right?
Yeah.
And
No,
say
and then you
no to
invest in these characters, and then it's
yes.
like, I mean, I don't want anything bad to happen to this person. I mean, I spent so much time on this person. So yeah. But I think it's I mean, I think it's really satisfying to, I mean, whether it's writing, whether it's, something else, I think just having a project and, being able to channel your creative energy towards something, I think is just it's made a huge difference in my life in terms of like helping orient me, helping me de-stress, giving me something outside of work I mean, work is great, but I mean, it's nice to have things outside of work as well. So I think all of those things I think are really um you know it makes a big difference.
It'd be interesting as a creative person, in terms of recruiting or bringing in new attorneys to participate in like the bar association events. What do you think is missing that or could be done differently to attract
You mean
more?
in terms of drawing people more
Yes.
into participation in bar
Yes.
associations? I do
Mhm.
think actually I mean, I feel like you've got a germ of an idea there that I hadn't actually even thought of, but I think that's I mean, I think it's definitely something to think about that, people have, interests outside of work, outside of, the practice of law. And I think, ultimately, um, bar associations and groups for lawyers are about bringing people together. And I think, bringing people together over their shared interests and hobbies, I think is a really interesting idea. I mean, I think definitely something that should be explored more and something I'm going to think about.
Yeah. I actually I had a younger attorney on a show recently, Byron. He's in Nassau County, and he's like, you know what? We need to freshen it up a little bit. So he
Yeah,
did. He initiated a few groups. I think he started Mahjong, Mahjong group on a different night.
that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
I love
That
that.
yeah, just organizing things. It doesn't have to happen, during the monthly meeting, but
Yeah,
just there's something about people connecting about something other than work. Like in these podcasts, we really
yeah.
go outside of it, and it's been so much fun and so incredible when you learn about something about, I hate the word adversary, but the person on the other side
Exactly.
that you
Yeah.
had no idea about that they had that side to them. Um,
I completely agree. And I mean, I think, everyone has a personality and a life outside of work. And it's so important that we get to know each other as people as opposed to, constantly
yeah,
getting in
no,
the
for
thick
sure.
of things with our clients.
So on a parting note, like what would be thoughts, advice, message, or anything you'd like to share with our viewers and listeners?
I think it's find that community. I mean, whatever it is that, that you need to, bond with other people over, whether it's, I mean, like, we talked about with Split Second and needing a community of people that are going through the same kind of particular life challenges that you're going through in this season, or whether it's, a shared interest or hobby, or, you just need people to bond with over work. I mean, I think, find your people, because I think that's so important in terms of mental health, in terms of, keeping you sane in the midst of, life can be chaotic, work can be chaotic, and I think having that community makes such a big difference.
There's so much there. I mean, I could just continue and just keep you here, but I'm not going to do that. I'll bring you back. We'll continue the
Oh,
conversation.
for
But
sure.
Deepti, thank you for sharing your story, your strength, and just your authenticity.
Thanks, Denisa. This has been really fun. It's so nice to connect with you, and we are gonna have to get a drink sometime soon.
Oh yeah, for sure, or two. And to our everyone who's listening and watching, of course, and want to know how to get a hold of Deepti, we're added a link to her bio to get in touch with her. And then, of course, we encourage you to follow us on all social media, including a YouTube channel, Beyond the Bar Podcast. And until next time, stay curious and stay inspired.